All right, you can almost hear a collective sigh of relief across the country as parents watch their kids go from student to graduate. But now that they're in the real world, the money stuff really gets tricky. An expert is here to help you and help your kids. Back in this country, let's talk about this is graduation season, and whether it's high school or college, so many students are very excited about moving on, but there are some important principles that they probably are not that familiar with. How to be financially stable. So listen up. We've got a crash course with financial planner Karen Lee, who's with us right now. Before we actually talk about some of these great tips, this is really for parents and for students, because, you know, kids feel like, okay, I got my degree, I've got my diploma, and I'm set, but they need another little, you know, one-on-one 101 in financial stability. So let's talk about for something that's affected almost everybody this past week with the Dow dipping, you know, way down and then dipping back up. It was a real roller coaster ride, and some have kind of credited or blamed the European markets for that roller coaster. Do you agree?
Well, you know, whenever there is a crisis, the market's going to react in some way. The hardest thing about investing is that we're emotional creatures, and investing takes logic. So when a crisis occurs, our brain says, this time is different. And it is. This time is different a little because we haven't had this kind of the debt in Greece, the dropping euro, so that is different. But the reaction to the market over time is going to be the same. It's going to react just like it has. Slowly over time, it'll come back like it does. So the crisis du jour, I call it, is the crisis of this time, but it isn't different in the way the market's going to react.
Yeah, and a lot of investors are very concerned about it too, because, you know, they think about they're looking at the markets as a real indicator of their own personal financial stability. And as we talk about college, and as we talk about high school kids graduating and preparing them for college in the real world, a lot of parents are relying on the indicators from the market to know, can I afford to get my kid to school?
Right. And again, the dilemma is these things make us panic. And what we really need to do is be patient with our investments. You shouldn't have money in the market that you need over the next 5 years. So you have time on your side for that. You simply, for people buying into their 401ks, this is a sale, right? It's a bargain. So keep investing. Whereas the
don't get out of it right now.
The emotional reaction is pull back and stop. And that's not the appropriate thing to do with our longer term money.
Okay, well, we don't want these young people to panic either. As they, you know, are accepting their diplomas, getting their degrees, are really excited about getting off into the real world, but they got to be equipped with what to do with that first paycheck. And you say there are 4 things to financial stability or financial survival.
Literacy
for a
skills,
lot of these. Okay, literacy. Let's begin with the first one.
Well, the most important thing would be to save 10% of every paycheck.
So that first paycheck.
Every paycheck you ever earn for the rest of your life, no matter what. Now, see, there's always going to be a but. This happened, that happened. Save every paycheck, 10% for the rest of your life, no matter what. And the second one we want to talk about.
Something about this compounding interest. What do we mean by that?
You know, we've all heard of it. I want you to understand it and embrace it. And the best way I can explain this is to tell, if you were 22, first job, if for some reason you happen to be able to accumulate $10,000 and you saved it, earned 8% compounding until you were 65, that would grow to $274,000. Remember that number, 274 from 10. Wait 10 years.
That's amazing.
Wait 10 years and start at 32. Same 10,000, 8%. At 65, it's only grown to 117,000.
Gosh.
That's a difference of $156,000, more than double.
That is amazing.
Because you waited 10 years to start.
Those are great. Those are great numbers, but gosh, you know, you get out of school, you're so happy to get that first paycheck. You're thinking about paying your rent, maybe your first car payment, etc.
And that is exciting.
A lot of folks aren't thinking about saving.
It is exciting. We actually have to, in this country, embrace the fact that as part of paying our bills, we have to pay for our future too.
And so that's where that whole financial independence comes from. That's point number 3. You know, things get tight. You want to call mom, dad, bail me out. I didn't know my utility bill was going to be this high. You say, don't do it. Resist.
My goal is total financial independence from your parents. That is your goal. Number one thing I hear from kids, high school and college, is I can't wait to move out so that mom and dad can stop telling me what to do. Well, the minute they give you a check to help out, guess what they can start doing again? Tell you what to do. So cut those purse strings and go on your own, and you'll be fine.
Plan for the worst. Hope for the best, of course.
That's my 4th point.
Why does a young person plan for the worst? Because they, you know, they kind of think they're invincible.
And 90% of the time we are, and nothing's bad's going to happen to us. What I ask my customers to do, and everyone I know, is let's make some plans for bad situations. Let's hope and dream for the best. But the key to that tip is make a plan.
Yeah.
Have a plan.
How do you
Update
plan
it
when they don't
regularly.
know? When they don't know, when they don't really know what's the bad stuff that could happen? What's around the corner?
Well, go talk to someone and they'll point out some things. Remember that going forward for a 22-year-old, your income is your most valuable asset, not your car. You got insurance for your car. Maybe you should insure your income. You can do that, right?
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things we want. Kids can plan at 22. They can even be thinking about buying a first house.
Yeah.
Get married and have kids one day.
That's part of the whole growing up thing.
The hardest thing is this retirement because it's so far away from them. But that's why I say go back to point number 2 about compounding interest. You want to start early.
All right, something that needs to, I guess everyone needs to be thinking about these days. We've heard about this real big movement that a lot of folks are thinking, you know what, I don't trust the big banks anymore. You think about the big bailouts that the government is assisting in. So now folks are reconsidering going back to those small little community banks. But when I hear that, I think the majority of the banks that are closing, aren't they the smaller banks?
Yeah,
so why would I want to do that?
Well, you need to be careful either way you go. I've been with a big bank for many, many years and never had any concern. But you made a great point, which is right now the big banks are like the evil people. They were part of the credit default swap. They've got a lot of negativity. They accepted that government bailout money. So there was actually a grassroots movement started in Maryland called Move Your Money. And it's thrown a lot of money towards the community banks. But the real key here would be, if you do a little shopping around, you probably can find some better interest rates at your local credit union or an online bank option than you might get at your big bank. And
Really?
we've heard of people getting turned down for loans at big banks, went to their community bank and did get approved.
But then don't you still worry about viability?
No, because they're all FDIC insured, right? And in any community bank that I've seen fail, another bank has bought them out, right?
Okay, that's true. Okay, that's very comforting. All right, we've of course heard from a lot of people,
Right.
Because we always
Yes.
ask people to get involved and send a question to my blog or Facebook. And J.W. Taylor asked this: Karen, is it better for me to invest into a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA with today's economy?
The big argument there is, are you saving taxes now versus saving taxes later? Do we think tax rates are going up in the future? Most people think yes.
Yes.
But go back to my tip for financial literacy for grads about compound interest. Do I want to defer the tax on that $10,000 today and save around $2,500 of tax? Or would I rather defer the tax on that $275,000 number? That's a lot bigger chunk. So the Roth IRA is the better way to go.
Are there still restrictions on that? It has to be within a certain income.
Well, that is
level, though,
true.
right?
But again, for our young people,
Yeah.
I think they're going to be okay.
They're
For
more
married
likely to
couples,
qualify.
it's about
Yeah.
160 and up. Right?
Okay, good. Melissa G says, what about, is it a good idea to pay your bills via automatic debit? Companies offer this as a way to pay your bills on time.
Well, as you know, we get to see a little bit more of the reader question than the viewers are seeing right now. So one of the things that this particular gal said is that she was thinking about also as an alternative charging it to her credit cards. So I really don't approve of the charging it to your credit cards unless you are so good at paying those cards off every single month.
Yeah, who wants interest on
Right.
top of your bill?
But I think the auto pay is great, fantastic. It's less checks to write, less postage to pay. You just got to watch your checking account online, make sure you can cover those auto drafts.
Excellent. Okay, and Monique Ward from my blog saying, like many other students, when I first began my journey down the road to obtain a college education, I did not fully grasp the concept of the amount of debt that I would be in after graduation. In time, I began to understand, so I transferred from a private university to a less expensive state college. By then, I had already accumulated a large portion of debt. Continued to invest in my education, believing that the risk would pay off by qualifying for a good paying job once I obtained my degree. However, she says, it's a long one, but it's very comprehensive and good. With the severe economic downturn, lack of jobs, the higher cost of living, and low wages, among other factors, I am very nervous about my ability to pay it all back. So here's the question: what can I do before and after graduation to put myself in a better financial situation?
Of course, we want to congratulate her in the first place for making a good decision. I think that was a wise move to a less expensive school. I encourage her to start looking at the government student loan forgiveness programs. Do you know they receive so few applications for these programs because we think that kids are mostly unaware of them? But you can get, think it's up to $100,000 of loans forgiven by doing volunteer work, Peace Corps, military. If you're in medical fields, there are plenty of different things. Again, it's more volunteer type works, but for pay. So all you need to do is Google student loan forgiveness, and there are so many websites that you can go to find out. Teaching, there's areas you can teach in
There's
school.
some real safety
There
nets out
are.
there
I
to
think she
help
should
you
start
out.
researching immediately. Maybe that first job is going to be one of these jobs that'll get her loan forgiveness.
Oh, well, all the best to Monique out there.
yeah.
All right, thanks so much, Karen Lee. Good to see you.
You too.
And we've learned a lot, haven't we? All right, well, we're going to take a look at the top stories right now after a year of